The time is at hand.
The elusive dog-like creature attacks livestock, bleeding them dry of blood.
8 to 10 feet tall, shadowy aliens.
But I am telling you right now,
we need a great reset.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen.
Welcome to In Dark Places. I'm your Huckleberry, Junebug Fugit. I mentioned the crackhead infestation a couple weeks ago on the show. Yeah, they're taking over here. On August 20th, I was at work, kind of straightening up the meat case, killing time. It was a slow day. And I found a pack of hamburger stuffed back behind all the rest of the hamburger. I was thinking, it's kind of weird. So I had started reaching back and I got it from the back area of the case, and it had been opened, and there was like a half a pound of hamburger missing out of it. Just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, I laid it on the scale. The pricing label that was on it weighed 1.66 pounds. So I laid it on the scale to see if I wasn't just going crazy, and it was 1.06. There was a good handful of that hamburger missing. So I was trying to figure out why. What was the story behind that? So I immediately went to the security room and watched the security footage. There's a camera right there at the meat case. I don't guess the guy saw it. But it had just happened like 2 minutes before I got out there. I just barely missed it. But played the security tape back. Sure enough, there was a guy there. He was a crackhead. He picked up the pack of hamburger, looked at it, laid it back down on the bottom shelf on a different shelf from where it came from. And he picked it up again, he looked at it. He started looking around to see if anybody was looking. He tore it open, and then he stuffed it back behind the other hamburger. And he walked away for a minute. He came back, and he got that same pack of hamburger, and he looked at it. And he picked up another pack of hamburger. He went back to the one hamburger that he had opened. And at that point, we thought that he must have been taking that handful of hamburger and just putting it into the other hamburger to make more. He wanted a bigger pack or something, I don't know. And then he laid the hamburger back down behind all the other hamburger. And he stood back and kind of judged it to see if it was very noticeable. And he saw that it was, so he kind of went back and adjusted it and moved it around a little bit. Tried to hide it good. And he stood back and looked at it again. Kind of like hanging a picture frame, how you look to see if the picture is hanging properly on your wall, if it's crooked or what. He kind of looked like that. He was standing back like 10 feet away from the meat case looking at it. And that went on for like 5 minutes. He kept moving it around and stuff. We never really were sure what happened to that handful of hamburger that he took, though. Never could see that part. And then finally he started to steal some hamburger buns. He picked those up and was walking toward the door with them. He laid the hamburger buns down at a cash register. I guess he saw that he was being watched or whatever, and he didn't steal the hamburger buns. We never figured out where the hamburger went. I'm assuming it was just down in his pocket. So, would you like a hamburger tonight with extra lint? Crackheads. Speaking of crackheads, this week on the show, we have black-eyed children. Totally unrelated. The black-eyed children are typically described as human kids between the ages of 6 and 16. They are always depicted as having pale skin and coal black eyes. All tales go the same way. The black-eyed child will approach someone and in some way ask for entrance to either a home or car. The person will suddenly feel an overwhelming feeling of dread and fear. As legend goes, a person can refuse the child entry and, though seemingly frustrated, the child will leave. However, once someone allows them inside, they are never heard from again. It is thought that the first story of the black-eyed children happened in 1996. A journalist named Brian Bethel was reportedly approached by two young boys that were between the ages of 9 and 12. Bethel described the first boy as a somewhat suave, olive-skinned, curly-headed young man, and the other as a red-headed, pale-skinned, freckled young man. As Bethel sat in his car, the boys approached him, asking for a ride, saying they were going to a movie, but left their money at home. Bethel claimed that as the boys talked to him, he was overcome with an intense feeling of fear. Upon looking the boys in the eye, he saw the sort of eyes one sees these days on aliens or bargain basement vampires on late-night television. Soulless orbs that two great swaths of starless night. Bethel quickly made excuses and drove off. As he looked in the rearview mirror, he claimed that the boys vanished within moments of his leaving. While there are a number of people that claim to have had encounters with the black-eyed children, it is widely believed that Bethel made it all up. However, others still believe that these children are supernatural and very real. British dog walker reports encounter with infamous black-eyed kid entity. By Tim Banal. Thanks, Tim. A British man claims that he encountered an infamous black-eyed kid entity that approached him while he was out walking his dog. According to a local media report, the eerie alleged incident occurred last month as the unidentified witness was strolling with his pet pooch near the county's notorious Cannock Chase, which is a forested area where all manner of high strangeness has been reported over the years. On this particular occasion, the man says, their walk took an unsettling turn a few hours after dusk when all of a sudden I felt a weird sensation on my stomach, like a feeling of impending doom, coupled with the impression that they were being watched. The weird sense of unease was seemingly also felt by his dog, he recalled, as the animal started to go mad and was pulling on the lead and barking. I've never known her to get so frightened. While looking to see what could have been causing this curious commotion, the man was taken aback when he suddenly felt something strange tugging on the back of my coat. Startled by the strange snag, he was more unnerved when he spun around and saw that it was a pale-faced little girl who was trying to get his attention. However, the man mused, this was no innocent tot, as the child seemed to sport completely black eyes. The second witness indicated that the youngster appeared to be wearing rags and giggled in a way that hurt my ears and sent chills down my spine. As if the encounter were not creepy enough, the man said that the mysterious little girl subsequently skipped off into the trees, leaving him and his dog to wonder what exactly had just happened. Unsurprisingly, the pair did not stick around to ponder the possibilities as they promptly left the scene before the bewildering black-eyed kid returned. Ultimately, the man mused that the uncanny child did not appear to be human, though, as is the case with the infamous black-eyed entities, what exactly they are remains a mystery. When I was 5, I shared a room with my baby sister, and the closet door never closed right. As I got a little older, I remember seeing this little boy with black, soulless eyes coming out of the closet, and he would always want me to play with him. I had a decent nightlight that would give a soft glow throughout the room, and the boy never traveled into the light. I remember how, at one point, he actually got mad that I kept refusing to play with him, and he snuck around the room, grabbed the cord to the nightlight, and threw it to the ground, immediately waking up my baby sister, who started screaming. I got in trouble because my mom thought that I was the one she heard playing in the room. She was especially mad when she found the broken nightlight. She tried to punish me by leaving us without a nightlight, but I convinced her to at least leave the door open because I knew the boy would never be able to get to either of us. We eventually moved from the house, and to this day I have never slept in full dark especially with the closet door open. Up until this point, I wrote it off as a bad dream and thought that it was probably that. But my little sister, who is pregnant for the second time, said that she heard children giggling the other night that stopped whenever she turned the lights on, made sure all the doors throughout the house were shut, and it brought back memories. To make things even more interesting, my boss recently admitted that there's an old superstition about not letting children sleep in the dark room with the closet door open. When I asked why, he said that there were black-eyed children who would coax the children into the closet and they would never be seen again. I believe I've encountered the black-eyed children over a decade ago in rural Appalachia. This has always low-key disturbed me. Keeping in touch to this day, we've never brought it up again. We were at a local store/state park sort of place at between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. I remember we were parked alongside the woods and some picnic tables. It was pretty desolate. We were technically trespassing. As our curfews were approaching and we were finishing up our time together, we experienced a very ominous feeling. He was in the driver's seat preparing to start the car and pull off. The car doesn't start. We sort of laughed it off, as if it wasn't the first time, and talked. Suddenly to the right, passenger side, where I was sitting, we see faint lights coming out of the woods. The ominous feeling intensified. Emerging from the woods, there were 4 to 5 children, younger than us, appearing to be like 7 to 11 years old. I'm not going to claim they had black eyes. It was dark. I don't remember, as I was pretty shook. I didn't read about the black-eyed children lore phenomena until years later, which described everything else that we experienced. All I can say is they were not normal. They didn't belong. The cabins at the park were not occupied. They weren't even getting rented out, as it was autumn/winter. We were miles away from the park's hotel. There were no adults. They were absolutely out of place. What were the lights? I don't know, but the closest thing I can compare them to were glow sticks, as if they had opened a package of those novelty glow sticks that included bracelets, necklaces, and wands, but it wasn't like they were having fun or goofing off. They just stopped, stood there, and stared at us. He tried asking what they were doing here, if they were lost, where are their parents? No response. The oldest-looking male child, a bit heavy-set with a gray hoodie on, approached the vehicle just in the front of where the passenger side headlight/corner would be. My friend started freaking out at this moment. He locked the doors and was like, "No, we gotta go." Eventually the car starts. The children don't move, and a kid stays put in front of the car. My friend eventually yells at the kid, "I'm going to run over you," and the boy slowly backs away, raises his arm, and points at us as we are leaving. I didn't look back. During the winter holiday season of 2021, my partner and her son left the country to visit her father, so I was home alone with the cat and the dog. The entire day of the event was filled with strange occurrences. One example being, I walked past the front door on my way to the washroom. I look at the door as I walk by, and it just opens by itself. So I close the door, thinking to myself how strange the timing was. I make sure it's securely closed by trying to open it without using the handle. It doesn't budge. Satisfied, I head into the washroom to do my thing. Walking back from the washroom to the rest of the house, I pass the front door. It's open. It has opened itself, and this time the dog is barking at it. I tell him to relax, and he usually would, but not today. He finally felt relaxed after a few minutes of ear bleed. Sounds painful. Fast forward 2 hours, and it's a nearly identical situation, in that I walk past the front door, close it, test it, head to the bathroom, come back to the house, and it's open again. Dog barking again. Yada yada. Another 2 hours passes. I'm in bed when the dog starts in again. I immediately checked the front door, and thankfully it's closed. This happens every 2 hours until around 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., I'm woken by the barks, accompanied by 3 hard knocks at my door. My blood is coursing, heart about to beat straight out of my chest as I look through the window to the left of the door to see who is there. There he is, a 10-ish-year-old indigenous-looking boy standing there in a jacket, wholly unremarkable in appearance until I look for his eyes under his hood in the dark of night, completely black from eyelid to eyelid. The conversation went roughly like this. "What's up, little man?" "I'm cold, can I come in?" "Where are your parents?" He just stands there silent. He has this eerie, fake smile. He's showing me while just kind of nodding. He evades the question and again talks about how cold he is. "Do you have parents, dude? It's 4 a.m. What's going on? Are you okay? Where are your mom and dad?" He shrugs. I tell him I can't let him in because I have COVID. He didn't end up getting it. I still wasn't convinced. This wasn't a home invasion type scenario. I run to the bedroom, grab my cell phone, and dial 911. I give the dispatcher my name and address while walking back to the front door and start describing the kid. This takes maybe 15 seconds. When I get back to the front door, he's gone. I throw the door open and run out to the street, but he's gone. There's nowhere he could have gone that quickly. We live at the top of a cul-de-sac. That's basically it. I looked for my neighbors with any cameras attached to their homes and asked if they had captured anything. Only 2 homes on my street have cameras, and neither of them got anything. One of the homes with the camera is across the street from us. While she didn't capture any footage, she said she saw a kid walking in the neighborhood a few days later, in the early morning hours, as she left for work. But when she got to where she saw him, he was gone. My great-grandma lived in a small town in New Mexico. She claims when she was younger, I'm assuming around her 30s, so this would be like 1950 to 1960, she was home at night getting ready for a snack before bed when she heard someone knocking on her front door. She lives literally in the middle of nowhere, in the desert, with hardly any neighbors. So when she went to enter the door, there was a child with their back turned toward her. They wanted to come in and asked her if she could give them something to eat. She refused, and they turned around to show their face with the blackest eyes. She thought it was a demon and closed and locked the front door. She claims to have heard knocking and banging on the front door and windows for hours until the sun came up. Pretty creepy. This person has 2 black-eyed kid encounters. The first one. I used to go to work with my mom. I was around 14 to 15 years old, and we were driving home late, like always. It was very dark outside, and it was raining something bad. And there's a bridge. My mom's convinced it's a portal, as some strange stuff always happens down there. So as Mom's driving, out of nowhere, some farmer guy steps out of the woods / trees around the creek. The bridge is above, and we have to swerve in order to not hit him. The thing is, he wasn't dressed for the rain. He wasn't even wet. Rather tall looking farmer, looking white, with brown, messy hair. Stubble, old, used pants, boots, flannel shirt, none of it getting wet. And when I looked into his eyes as we swerved, felt nothing but complete unfiltered fear and dread. He didn't even have whites inside his eyes. Everything was completely, uselessly black. Mom paused and asked if we should turn around and check if the guy's alright / needed a ride. And I told her I'd jump out of the car if she tried. Some black-eyed adult. And her second encounter I'm currently visiting my dad, stepmom, and half-siblings. And there's a black-eyed kid outside. White kid in overalls, rainbow shirt, and blonde hair, and bangs, and just completely black eyes with zero pupils. Thing is, I genuinely feel zero fear nor dread around him, like I did with the other guy. Even though he's gotten inside, nothing has actually happened to me. Personally, he's just another spirit kid. He even told me his name is Jason. I'm sorry, wait just a minute. He's inside your house as you're typing that? I had never heard of the black-eyed children until I encountered them. Still not knowing who or what they were, I did what any modern 25-year-old male would do. I Googled them. And boy was I shocked that I wasn't the only one. Had I not seen them for myself, I would have just thought it would have been another modern urban legend gone viral. Besides my girlfriend, I've only told my brother, who is into everything creepy and horror. For I knew he would be the only one to not judge me or try and commit me to a mental hospital. He's the one that said I should post this here. I'm not looking for any upvotes or trying to impress anyone with a good read. I am an accountant. I'm not a writer. I'm simply trying to warn people that some things out in this world are beyond our comprehension. And if you hear a knock at the door, make sure you check before opening. I wish I had. Here's my story. My girlfriend and I live in a small gated community in southwestern West Virginia called Glade Springs. The community has about 150 houses, a country club, a steakhouse/bar called Bunkers. Now anyone can come through the gate during the business hours of Bunkers. But after they close, the front security gate stops all traffic and makes sure you are a resident. And if you are a visitor, they call the house that you're going to verify that you are actually expecting them. Sometimes it's a hassle, but hey, don't have to worry about a robbery. So imagine my surprise when my doorbell chimed at 3 a.m. I was jarred awake and wasn't sure if it wasn't just a dream, considering I had just went to bed shortly before, and was probably just going into REM sleep. I rolled over and looked at the clock, noticing the time, and when my doorbell chimed again, I felt a cold chill run through my body. Not reading too much into it, it could be that one of my neighbors has an emergency, right? I nonchalantly made my way to the door. Now see how foolish I really was. And I opened it. Luckily, the wrought iron storm door was still locked, because who or what stood before me was not a resident of the community. 2 young boys stood at my doorstep, one looking about 17 and another looking about 10, wearing dark hooded sweatshirts and jeans. The young one had shaggy, dirty blonde hair and would only look down at the stone steps, and the older one had his hood pulled and his head tipped to where I could only see half of his nose down. My voice caught in my throat, and before I could even ask what they wanted, the older one spoke. His voice sounded forced and dry. There was no emotion or sincerity in what he said. "I'm sorry to bother you and your girlfriend, but we need to come in and use your phone. We've been in an accident." I felt a familiar chill return to my whole body. How did he know my girlfriend was here? I wrote it off as my Tahoe and her Volkswagen was in the driveway, and I figured he'd just assumed. I tripped over my words. Something about these kids wasn't right, wasn't normal, wasn't human. I can bring you my cell phone, and you can call. I don't get service inside, so you can stand here on my sidewalk and call, I finally said nervously. Of course, I was lying through my clenched teeth. I did not want these kids in my house. "Well, my brother really needs to use your bathroom, Kane. We have to come in," the older one said, and that's when I went into a complete panic. He knew my name. "I'm sorry, are you from here? How did you know my name?" The words practically shook out of my mouth. That's when he became slightly hostile and demanded to be let inside, and I told him I was sorry, but I couldn't help him. And just as I was about to close the main door is when it happened. The both of them snapped their heads upward and looked at me straight in the eyes. Black. No iris, no pupil, no retina. Just pure, deep black. I was paralyzed with fear. For a second I thought those kids were just playing a cruel joke and had snuck into the community somehow and bought some of those freaky supernatural demon sclera contacts. That was until I heard ringing. It was like a ringing sound that you hear when you have a hearing test done. That digital high-pitched, shrill ringing. And then the flashback started. I was suddenly a toddler again at my grandparents' house, sitting under a chestnut tree with my grandmother picking up the nuts and putting them in a large metal soup kettle. It was a crisp fall day. It's one of my earliest and dearest memories. I was about 3 and even have a picture of it, and one I hold very near to my heart. But then, there they were, behind my mother. We locked eyes, their eyes still black as night, and suddenly they smiled simultaneously, and that's when everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was shaken awake, lying in the mud room floor. My girlfriend standing over me with a worried look. "What's going on, Kane?" she asked. I had no idea how to answer her. My head had taken a good whack against the slate floor, and a bit of dried blood was stuck in my hair. But other than that, I was fine physically. I slowly remembered everything that had happened and looked at the door. Daylight. I've never been so happy to see morning in all my life. I told my girlfriend everything that had happened, and I honestly think she thought I had brain damage from hitting the floor, but she insisted she believed me. And then we Googled it, and I believe that's when she really started to believe me. I don't know who or what they are, or where they come from, but they're not of this world. I know that for a fact. For some reason I had a lingering thought, I'm still not sure if they put the thought in my head or not, that they wanted me to know that even my memories aren't safe. They are very strong and seem to be growing in numbers. For some reason they seem to not be able to hurt you physically unless you invite them in, which I don't know, since either no one has ever let them in or the ones that have aren't around to tell their story anymore. But they can get into your mind. Since that night I feel as though I'm being watched. I see them out of the corner of my eye occasionally. I'll look at my girlfriend while we're at the movies or dinner, and her eyes will be solid black for a split second. And worst of all, they took one of my most precious and most often reminisced memories and turned it into something sinister. Something that's now a constant reminder of the black-eyed children. And just like that, we are woefully out of time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless you.